start at the top. The title of this is Convert Your Conversation into Content with Spiral. So, who am I? I'm Danny. I'm the general manager of Spiral at Every. I'm based in New York. And for those of you who are asking, what is Every? Every is a media and software company. We publish a daily newsletter about what comes next in technology. We also build Spiral software products like Spiral. We have a few others. We offer courses and we also provide AI consulting and training services. If you're interested, go find out more at everywhere on the internet. But why are you here? You're here because you probably want more money. And how do you get more money? One of the ways is you get more clients. And how do I get more clients? One of the ways is to prove your credibility. A lot of what Jason's talking about. And so how do you prove your credibility? Well, I think that one of the ways that you can do that is to prove your expertise to your potential clients before they've even met you, before they've even jumped on a call. One of the ways is to have a backlog of content about topics that matter to you and, more importantly, matter to your clients. It's a lot more impressive to have blog posts and tweets and whatever about MCPs 4 months ago, around the time that Anthropic dropped the protocol, than today when everyone's talking about it. So, what should you write about? And I think personally that you don't need new ideas, you don't need new insights. They're all kind of already here in your head already. You're probably already rich in expertise and experience. You just lack visibility. I would take a bet that you probably spend 10 hours a week talking to clients, potential clients, internal meetings, whatever. There's probably some gold there. And if you're like me, you probably spend 10 hours scrolling on Twitter, listening to podcasts, reading other people's content. There's probably gold there too. So to be a bit more concrete about it, content from meetings and calls, there's content opportunities in every call and meeting you have. What did you say twice in that call? What did you bring up to multiple clients this week? What's something that when you jumped on a sales call with a prospective client, they brought up a lot as pushback? There's some really interesting content that you can write from that, when you get on that prospective call, be like, hey, I wrote about this 2 weeks ago. Check this out. I think that's really powerful. Content from what you consume. Honestly, there's just a world of content opportunities and just sharing your 2 cents. Jason says Rag is dead. Here's why I disagree. I listened to the All In pod and Chamath is wrong about tariffs. Here's my opinion. But writing content is hard. Blank pages are scary. Writing can be slow and painful. And today, especially with AI, most content lacks authenticity, pretty shallow. And you've probably just left with like, are people even going to read this? Is this even going to do anything for me? And this is where we think Spiral can help. Spiral helps you start at 80% instead of a blank page. It helps you take one piece of content and end up with 10. A tweet becomes a blog post becomes a newsletter, so on and so forth. Spiral helps you create content that actually sounds like you, as opposed to just generic GPT-4 slop. And most importantly, the more consistent you are, the more likely your content will start to appear in feeds. So with all of that, let me actually just show it off. We'll do a little demo. So we'll start with that first one, meetings into content. So I have this transcript here between an AI consultant called Danny and a company and the guy's called Jason. And you can see like in the meeting, a lot of it is, they're talking about what they did this morning, dropping off their daughter to school. And we're going to bring it up to Spiral. Now, the way that Spiral works, it's not a chat interface like ChatGPT or Claude. Spiral has an atomic unit, which are also called spirals. And it takes in a particular type of input, like a transcript or an article, and it turns it into a tweet. And the first thing it's going to do, when you throw it in there, is going to try and find what is really interesting in this thing that you've just given me. And it's going to turn it into a tweet in this case. So if I hit run, I'm not even going to look at the transcript. Stop buying enterprise AI solutions from vendors with fancy demos. The best AI transformations happen when you give employees freedom to experiment with tools they actually want to use. Innovation flows from the bottom up, not from executive roadmaps and seven-figure implementations. So there's a lot in this transcript about other things, but it's figured out like the most interesting thing here is that companies shouldn't be buying expensive AI solutions. They should be giving their employees the ability to like experiment and do it from a bottom up approach. It's really interesting. But I want to go a little bit further. Maybe there's another way I want to write this. So I can hit generate multiple. Spiral's going to give you 3 more tweets. Go back to the point of like how Spiral can help. I've already started at 8%. I had this meeting, didn't even know if there was interesting content here. And I've already got like this really interesting idea that could be for a tweet. Your AI strategy is backwards. Don't buy $1 million enterprise solutions with fancy demos. Instead, give employees budget to experiment tools they actually want to use. So I really like this. I think this is pretty cool. So one of the things that you could do is literally just copy this, send it out to Twitter, see how it does. If it does really well, the next thing you can do not going in from taking one piece of content into multiple, is to turn it into a blog. And in Spiral, we have a public library full of different things. One of them is taking transcripts into blogs. So I'm going to throw the transcript in here, and I'm also just going to throw in the tweet at the bottom. Just going to add it to the bottom and say, write a blog about the idea at the bottom and let it run. It might take a few minutes or seconds. And there you go. It's going to start streaming it. Now, the idea here is it's not going to be perfect. You need to spend a little bit of time with what it is, make it sound like actually you, make it actually say the points that you want to say. The more that you ask for it, the more that it's just going to come up with stuff. But already I started with something that I could tweet, see how it does on engagement wise, and just keep going from there. So that's the meeting one. Now, maybe I want to go in here and change this a little bit. You can come in and you can edit it. You can make sure that it fits how you write. So that's the meeting to transcript one. Next is podcasts into content. Now, again, I think everyone's consuming on the internet. And I'm going to take this Lex Fridman podcast with the CEO of Perplexity and throw it into that same spiral. It's going to do the exact same thing. It's just going to try and find what's interesting. We'll generate multiple. This is interesting. The real breakthrough in AI won't be bigger models. They'll be decoupling reasons from facts. We don't need AI that memorizes everything. We need AIs that can think deeply with access to information. That's the $1 trillion insight. But maybe I actually want to make it more about Perplexity. Maybe I actually listen to the podcast and I have a hot take that I want to make about Perplexity. Maybe it's most people don't understand why Perplexity is raising fat rounds, making a long-term bet you don't get. Let's see what it comes up there. So, same thing. I took a podcast. Maybe I didn't realize that there was a way for me to write something here, and now I can like put this out on Twitter and get some, just telling people that I'm paying attention to these things. Again, you could do this for all sorts of things. Here is the CEO of Shopify put out this piece yesterday about how the whole team needs to start using AI. Just gonna copy and paste it into there. And already I've got something that like could be interesting. Maybe I want to say the same thing from before, from that meeting. Maybe I was saying in that meeting, it should be a bottoms-up approach. So AI in companies should be bottom-up approach, not expensive vendors, but team members experimenting. Okay, and so maybe I actually like this to begin with. So let's start with that ending. And now I can chat with it, start improving it a little bit. This is how you actually transform a company. Let's make that hook better. Bring in. Oh, I actually kind of like that. No, let's do. And honestly, I'm just going to tweet that because I like it. The next thing is you can just find content on the internet. A lot of you may have seen all the stuff going on about Rippling and Deal. Here's a TechCrunch piece. Maybe I don't even care about reading this. And I just want to see like what is interesting here. I could just throw the link in, have it come up with something interesting. So my actual opinion on all this stuff is that startups should focus on being good, not being great even, not corporate espionage. Okay, they didn't really listen to me. No, let's not do. It's a distraction. Yeah, I might want to tweet that out. And finally, I might be reading something that's actually paywalled. So this is a great piece that we put out a couple of weeks ago about the founder of NVIDIA is $120 billion richer than me. But some of the articles on Every is actually paywalled. But we have a Chrome extension. So if you download the Spiral Chrome extension, you can now use this on any type of content, whether it's hard to copy and paste or it's behind a paywall. And it will ask you in the Chrome extension, what is the opinion that you have? And my opinion from this is that this comes from trying things out, being lucky, and whatever else is in the article. Okay, so I really like that. Optimists get rich, skeptics write newsletters about them. So start with that ending. And so as you can see in 5 minutes, I think we made a couple of tweets based on a meeting, a couple of things I've been reading on the internet and a podcast. You do this more frequently, you do this with more meetings, you do this with more tweets, more blog posts that you're just consuming. You've got content for days. And the whole idea is you can try it out, see what sticks, see what resonates with your audience, but more importantly, see what actually shows your prospective clients oh, they're paying attention to what matters to me. Cool. Now, you might be looking at all of that and say hey, none of that sounded like me. None of that sounded like what I want to say. And so a big part of Spiral is making it sound like you. And this is where making your own spiral comes in. So when you go to the UI, in the top left corner, you can create your own spiral. It's going to ask you what's your input and what's your output. So my input's going to be transcripts and my output's going to be blog posts. Now, I'm a real big fan of Seth Godin. I think his blog posts are actually tweet worthy. So all you have to do is come in and just give it a couple of examples. It could be examples from your content. It could be examples from content you really like, a bit of both, and it'll help Spiral take whatever you give it and write it in the same tone of voice, format, structure, and really try and get at what is the emotional point at the end of it. So we'll throw a couple in and we'll let it run. Now, just like any good cooking show, I already did this beforehand. So here is the Seth Godin one. And let's see what maybe Seth wants to say about Perplexity. So this is completely different. The same podcast, whereas before we were saying like it isn't about big models, it's about something else. Like here, it's about answers. And again, now that we've got this format and this tone of voice, we can start layering in our own opinions. It's not about answers, it's about curiosity and letting people go down rabbit holes, not getting them to click on an ad straight away. And I'll show you one more, which is why don't we tweet like Jason? I made a Jason Liu tweeter and we'll throw in the exact same podcast. And to be cool, I used 4 of Jason's recent tweets. So it may not exactly sound like Jason, but it sounds like what he's been recently saying. Throw it in there. Aravind built Perplexity because chatbots keep hallucinating and he needed health insurance. The solution, force AI to cite everything like academics do in papers. Google's trapped in their ad business while Perplexity focuses on knowledge discovery. Your margin is my opportunity. Okay, and we'll do one more test with this, which is we'll take that transcript from the meeting that we had earlier and we'll throw that in. Financial services execs always wants to buy some massive enterprise AI solution for vendors. Your employees know their jobs better than you do. Give them AI tools and let them experiment. Help down AI implementation on bottom of adoption wins. So I think drop that. That actually sounds like a pretty good Jason tweet to me. Cool. So the 2 other things are important is that Spiral works really well when you give it examples of how you sound or how you really want to sound. But you may not know exactly how you sound. And this is where the public library is really important. So this public library full of tweets, LinkedIn posts, blog posts, newsletters, everything. And maybe you want to start using it, but after a while you want it to sound like you. So one of the most important things you can do with Spiral is you can actually clone a Spiral and you can make it your own. So here's a clone. Now, when you go in, you can actually see the set of examples that are in here that like make the Spiral what it is. And then maybe things that you don't like. Like I don't like that this starts with research in all caps. So I'm just going to remove it. And I'm going to remove this one too. Now I'm going to start adding in some of Jason's tweets. That way, under the hood, the model is going to try to, oh, I lost it, my bad. There we go. Take what already makes it great, but hone it more towards what you're interested in. Now, that's happening under the hood. That's something you can play with. And that's kind of the end of the demo. Now, you might be asking the question, can't I just use ChatGPT or Claude? Yes, we're just a wrapper. We're using Claude under the hood. And the reason why you would want to use something like Spiral instead is there's no prompt engineering needed. Just drop in your content and go. If you spend the time to give it examples and make it, train an actual Spiral, it'll sound like you every single time. It'll learn and match your tone of voice. And the most important thing is that when you start scaling and you start realizing that you want to make more content and you want to delegate this to somebody, it's much easier to delegate a workflow. Hey, go to Spiral, click this thing and just copy and paste, as opposed to, hey, go to ChatGPT, paste this exact prompt, then paste the transcript and then do this. It's more about efficiencies in terms of the workflow and being consistent. Final takeaways, prove your credibility before they've met you. Don't start from a blank page. Use what's going on in your life, meetings, other content to get things going, and make it easy for yourself to be consistent. Use Spiral, use AI. This is the most important thing. Thank you. We can jump into some questions, but check out Spiral. There's an unlimited 7-day trial. I get 20% off with an annual sub if you use the code JXNLCO. Check out Every, and then follow Spiral, follow Every, follow me. Thank you.
Nice. Now I have tweets that sound like me and promo codes after my Twitter handle. I also want to love to sort of share one thing on my side as well from using Spiral, which is the fact that I think oftentimes now I will write my own blog posts or work with the transcripts and mostly spend a lot of my efforts in a single blog post. And then what Spiral has really helped me do is to do 2 things. After in this blog post, like promoting it almost as like a different kind of job. And now it's like, great, I can have a couple of different tweets promoted, a LinkedIn post promoted. But the goal is to still have a really good blog post out, right? That's the goal isn't really just to ship slop. I will say the other thing that has been really helpful is oftentimes when I wrap up a meeting, I don't really have that much time to think about what were the interesting ideas that came out from that meeting. It's like, okay, well, we had this point about hiring and this mistake that we made. We made a point about like prompt engineering. I don't really know what is worth writing right now, mostly because I've just gotten busier. And so one thing that Spiral has helped me do is if it can just produce 4 or 5 tweets, I will just put them in the queue and I will just sort of schedule them in and then post them. And what will end up happening is it won't be the case that all of them have the same kind of engagement. Usually one of them will get 30,000 views, the other two get like 500, and they go, okay, well, clearly the people reading my stuff, they're resonating with this idea around hiring. Maybe there's something more there. And then I'll go and do deeper work and actually go figure out like what is the hiring blog post I should write about. And so Spiral has helped me basically just be a sensor to sample the internet. The internet can tell me what they're interested in reading about, and then I can go produce that article. And then the issue then is, okay, once I have something I think is important for people to read, how do I make sure people click it? And the punchy tweet for me has been a really valuable tool just because it kind of helps me set the groundwork of a funnel that actually works, right? If I write a blog post and then the tweet is just like, today I had a conversation with a friend of mine and we talked about hiring and how it was really hard, people don't really end up clicking the blog post anyways, and it's kind of like a unproductive use of time. But oftentimes the punchy tweet has helped me just like get the traffic to the blog post so somebody actually reads that. And that's kind of one of the things that has been really big for me is just, understanding that the work oftentimes won't speak for itself these days, and you do need a little bit of a push to sort of get people to click, and that's kind of something that's been really helpful for me and Spiral.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, and you'll see that a bunch on my Twitter actually. Like I do have some like spammy tweets, and then ideally I have the blog post that as a consequence of taking all these measurements. Let's go through some of these questions. I think are covering your way to create these spirals yourself, but this last question I think is also something I'm very curious about because it would really help with my workflows, which is, will you add the ability eventually like publish directly through like an X or a LinkedIn?
I think
what does that roadmap look like in general? I think is a question people are interested in.
Yeah. So I'll answer that question first because it's easier, and then we can go into what is the roadmap. Yes, eventually, most likely more like to do what you did, MCPs with tools like Typefully or Hyper8, and like just have it go out like that, as opposed to reinventing the wheel. There's already these other tools that do scheduling, content calendar, all of that stuff really well. And personally, I'm a big believer on focus and just like work on core competencies broadly to get involved with like what is the roadmap. Right now, Spiral takes one thing, gives you another, but you're kind of stuck with what it gives you. So the two things that we're going to start shipping the two things that we're going to ship coming soon. One of them is a feedback tool. I'm actually going to show it off. It doesn't work. Don't try and use it. But sometimes Spiral will put out something, but it doesn't even know if it's good. So we have this tool here where you can actually throw in a tweet. And so I threw in a tweet that I was like thinking about making earlier. I'm just going to ask you some questions. And it's like, okay, going to ask you context of what it is you're going to put it out. And then it's going to like actually evaluate your tweet. Like, that's actually a good hook and like work with you a little bit to like improve the tweet. And we've been using this a lot to like take some of the stuff that Spiral puts out and just like double check it. Or even when we're writing our own tweets, just be like, wait, am I even writing something that's good here? And so maybe this UI and this like way that it looks right now isn't what it'll end up in the end product. And we'll actually bring this back in to the way that Spiral works and have it think another time before it generates content. But the idea is to like make it more of a partner for you to like write content as opposed to, just, hey, give me a tweet. It's like, hey, give me a tweet. And let's actually think about for a second, what is it that I'm trying to say? And is it good? And maybe it'll prompt you with all of those things. Like, hey, here's the meeting. This is the interesting idea. Is this what you want to talk about? But be a little bit more, I hate to use the word, but a little bit more agentic in that sense.
Yeah, this reminds me of the other example where I think Spiral has a really good like newsletter introduction. Those have been truly helpful where there'll be times where I'll have like 2 or 3 guest lecturers come in and I want to send the email to tell everybody like, hey, there's been these like 5 really great talks. And then again, Spiral is able to just help me write a little intro for each one that says like, this is the thing you're going to learn. This is the thing you're going to learn. And again, I think if I wrote it by myself, it would just be Danny from Spiral talked about Spiral. Danny from Every talked about Spiral. Take a look. Whereas again, it'll just capture a lot of the work. Gabriella asks like, how does it handle other languages?
That's actually a great question. So we have a lot of people who use it in a lot of other languages. So like English is number one. French is actually second, which is surprising to me. And then I'm also super surprised, but I'm seeing a lot of Chinese and Japanese being used in there. Under the hood, like I said earlier, we're using Claude. So we're only as good as Claude is. But if you give it examples in your language, it will then try to replicate in that language. You can also say like, hey, make this Spanish and let's see what it does. Write this in Spanish. Now, unfortunately, I only speak English, so I can't comment on how good the Spanish is, but we have like the second most used language on Spiral is French, and then it's Spanish. But I think it's like most of these models, very formal, and you may have to go in there and like write it yourself and then improve it. Sorry.
Oh, I guess another question on my end is like, are you able to fork or share spirals? Like I used to have a spiral that writes proposals for me. So it was a spiral, had a bunch of different example proposals, and it would take the first sales call and turn it into a proposal with pricing information based on the conversation. Is it possible for you to create one and then share it with the public, or how does that work?
Yeah, top right corner, very similar to Google Docs. I can share it with my team, and we have like everyone on every right now in my team. But you can also just share it with the public. And then you can copy a link and you can give that to another Spiral user, and they can use it to their heart's content. In terms of forking, that's what the cloning feature is for. You can just clone it and be like, okay, I like this, but actually one of the things I want to change is this Seth Godin thing. I don't like it anymore. I want to use something from somebody else on my own stuff.
Awesome. Let me just double check if there's any other questions. If there's any other questions that are not on the Slido, feel free to just like raise your hand, unmute, and then we can do a couple of questions. We'll probably wrap up in 15 minutes. 1 second, I can't see everybody. Well, in that case, thank you so much, Danny. I actually learned a couple of things. I didn't know there was this extension. I think that was going to be really helpful to help me promote some of my own blog posts. I guess my last question is, will you ever hand out videos?
Probably not. Back to the point before, I think we're going to focus on written content. There's still a world for us to do in making sure that we're getting people to write good content as opposed to slop. And that plus videos, I think it's, we'll end up just making rubbish tweets, rubbish, yeah.
Makes sense. Makes sense. I'm excited to get my hands on the Spiral writing coach. Awesome. Thank you, everyone.
Perfect.
Thank you, Danny. Well
Thank you.
After this. Take care, everyone.
Brilliant. See you.